This is you. Are you carrying the weight of the world? Is work stressing you out? Life not all you thought it would be? I bet a lot of that weight you added yourself. Making assumptions before you know the facts. Imagining the worst case scenario. Caring more about people's opinion than God's. Battling the problem before it even exists. Thinking that everyone has a hidden agenda. Taking charge before God gave the green light. Too proud to ask for help. Living with no plan because life might end tomorrow. Oof, that is a lot of added weight. You don't need to carry that anymore. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Philippians 4:6.
There may be an ancient proverb that has more answers to more situations that we face in life than maybe any other one passage. So if I got your attention, this passage is probably familiar to all of you. You've probably heard some form of this or not. And it's simply put this way. Look at the screen. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your paths straight. This was penned by arguably the wisest man who has ever walked the planet besides Jesus. Solomon the wise. And you put that down, simply he says, trust God alone, look for Him above everything else, and He will lead you. In this short series that we've had on stress less, this month, we're wrapping it up here today. In this short series, I think that we've discovered that most of the worries and the anxieties and the stress we have relate back in some form or another to our own basic limitations. I mean, think about this. We are anxious and we worry because we don't know the whole thing. We're faced with something that causes pain and we're not really sure how to navigate through. We don't know what path to choose. We have madmen right now that are developing nuclear weapons and they have promised to blow different countries off the face of the map. What do we do with that? Well, we tend to worry. And we have terrorism that's continually looming over us and we feel this expectation in dread. What do we do with that? Well, we stress. And Christianity is being openly attacked in our country now more than ever before. And many of our symbols seem to be categorically they're being removed from public places. What do we do with that? Well, we get anxious. And there seems to be this growing division between social strata and political position and the different races. And sometimes that division seems like it's growing so much that it's unbridgeable. What do we do with that? We stress. And softening educational standards and moral standards seem to be gaining momentum. And then you put the economy on top of that. It seems like we're always living in a recession. I've been in a recession since I've been born. We're always on the brink of depression. And it doesn't matter what candidate you follow. I mean, we all blame it on everything else. It just seems like there are not enough jobs and the bills are too much and the debt, the national debt, it's growing astronomically. So what do we do with all of these different things that are going on in our world and in our country? Well, we just tend to worry over them, be anxious over them. In fact, one guy said it this way, man, we got swine flu, we've got Asian flu, we've got German flu, we've got Siamese cat flu, and we've got one flu over the cuckoo's nest. I think that's it. We've just got all of these different issues and problems. We're anxious and we worry because we don't understand enough and we're confused over which way to choose. Being confused over which direction to take, that's common for all of us. It kind of reminds me of the funny story about the family grandpa. I mean, he was old and his health was failing and his heart was weak. The family got news that Grandpa's brother died. And on top of that, Grandpa's brother was going to give Grandpa $1 million. And they knew with his heart this week, that might be more than he could take. So they were trying to figure out how they were going to tell Grandpa about this news. And they thought, well, let's just tell the pastor to tell him, because he's trained to give him shocking news. So the pastor early that evening, joined Grandpa on the porch. And they had a bunch of small talk together for a while. And then after a little bit, the pastor said, hypothetical here, Grandpa. What would you do if you inherited $1 million? And Grandpa thought about it and looked at him and he said, I really don't need any money at my age. I'd just give it all to the church. At which point the pastor fell over dead with a heart attack on the porch. That's kind of our condition. We worry. We're an anxious people. We worry about not knowing enough, and we worry that we think sometimes we know too much. And we constantly worry over what decision to make. So somebody comes along and they point out this passage, this ancient proverb. The first phrase, look at that. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust God from the bottom of your heart. And we start meditating on that a little bit, and pretty quick, you kind of feel like the curtain begins to open up and an answer begins to come in. And that's the first part of the outline. It's trust fully in God. We're going to hit this a little bit right here and then come back at the end. But for right now, to trust fully in God, y'all, that means to put all of our weight on God because we think He can handle it. That means all of our decisions, all of our future, all of our past, every problem that we face, we put it all on there. The problem with that is that for many reasons, we can't seem to let all of our weight just go. There's just something inside of us that says, I just don't know if God can handle this. And maybe we don't say that consciously, but we live it. We don't just let Him have all of it. And many times our worries and fears are based on facts. But whatever facts we have, those facts are always incomplete. They're limited because we don't see the whole picture. Our understanding never tells the whole story. You know how frustrating fog can be when you're trying to get one place to another? It obscures our vision, so we have to slow down when we drive through fog. It can be quite an obstacle in our mobility, especially the kind of place that most of us like to live. You know how much water is in fog? You can take a 7-city block area with fog from the floor 100 feet up. You know how much water is in that much fog over that 7-block area? You know how much water is in that? Less than an 8-ounce cup of water. I didn't know that. I thought all of that would be way more water than no. It's just that little tiny bit. Our fears and our worries can be like that. The fog, it forces us to move through life more slowly, more cautiously. But a thick fog is really nothing more than a little splash of water. And anytime God slows us down in life, it's on purpose. For whatever reason, He's wanting us to maybe notice something that we normally would just race on past. Or maybe He's wanting us to slow down because He's working inside of us and He's wanting somebody else to notice something. The point is, the fog does obscure our visibility, just like fear obscures our understanding. And both fog and fear really aren't all that substantial when we begin to see the whole picture. We just don't have all the facts in yet. Back in the late 1990s, there was this high school freshman that won first prize at the Greater Idaho Falls Science Fair. And he did it by urging people to sign this petition. And the petition was demanding more strict control or even the total elimination of the chemical dihydrogen monoxide. And he listed these 7 reasons why we should get rid of this chemical. Number 1, it was known to cause excessive sweating and vomiting. Number 2, it was a major component in acid rain. Number 3, it could cause severe burns in its gaseous state. Number 4, accidental inhalation could kill you. Number 5, it contributed to erosion. Number 6, it decreased the effectiveness of automobile brakes. And number 7, it had been found in tumors of terminal cancer patients. He asked 50 people if they would sign this petition to get rid of this chemical. 43 of them, after they heard those reasons, signed it without thinking. 6 people said, I'm undecided, I'm not sure. One person said, I'll never sign that. You know why? The one person understood what the chemical was. The hydrogen monoxide is water. Now, everything that the guy said about that chemical is true. He said that it can cause excessive sweating and vomiting. Yeah, you got to have that in order to do that. Number 2, it's a major component in acid rain. Rain is water. Number 3, it can cause severe burns in its gaseous state. That would be called steam. Number 4, if you accidentally inhale it, it could kill you. That's known as drowning. Number 5, it does contribute to erosion. It washes soil away. Number 6, it does decrease the effectiveness of car brakes. The pavement is wet. Hello. And number 7, and water is found in tumors of cancer patients. You guys, water is found in every cell in our body, let alone whether or not it's cancerous. The point is, whatever information we have at any given time, it's incomplete. Whatever facts we've acquired, they're partial. It's not the whole. There is only one being who has the whole picture and understands the whole story. And in this ancient proverb, it's saying, trust fully in Him. And the second thing this proverb says, it's urging us to let everything else go. Let everything else go. If our information and our facts are limited, why in the world do we lean all of our understanding on those limitations? I need a volunteer. Bryce, he said, thank you, come up here. Man, read my mind. All right, Bryce, I want you to hold this and face the audience. First, I want you to hold it like a baby or a football. All right, now if I had Bryce hold this like this, he could hold that a long time. He could probably hold that easily all day, like that. But I'm not going to ask him to do that. Bryce, I want you to grab the middle of it, and I want you to hold it straight out, straight arm from your body. All right, I'm going to tell a story while he just holds it there still. That's good. Matilda has purchased a magazine for us, and she brought it home just recently. It's a Time magazine. It's on the electrifying life of Thomas Edison. Great story, Thomas Edison. You know, he's the one that invented the microphone and the phonograph and the incandescent light and a thousand other inventions that we use regularly. In December of 1914, he had worked a decade on this storage battery. And he wasn't getting it the way he knew it could happen. And so what happened was he depleted a lot of money, and he was in real trouble. Well, one night on December the 9th in 1914, a spontaneous combustion started out in the film room. The film room had all of these highly flammable objects, and that fire spread to other parts of his compound. Well, after it was all said and done, 8 different towns' fire departments came trying to take care of this huge fire. Well, there wasn't enough water pressure, and the fire was way too intense. So all of the buildings were burned. Charles Edison, Thomas's son, went running looking for his dad during this fire, and he finally found him. When he found him, his face was reflecting this incredible fire. And his white hair was being blown in the wind. And son Charles said about his dad, my heart ached for him. He was 67, no longer a young man, and everything was going up in flames. And with a substantial part of Edison's personal kingdom collapsing in this inferno, Edison said to his son, this is what Thomas Edison said during this huge fire. Where's your mother? Go and get her and her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again. After the fire, the next day, they were going through all of the charred remains, and Edison actually said this to his son. There is great value in disaster. Thank God that we can start over. And 3 weeks later, Edison managed to produce and deliver his first phonograph. Okay. He's starting to feel it. A little bit of cramp right there in the top of the arm. Oh yeah. It's not so much the weight of the object. It's how long you have to hold it. And pretty quick you begin to tremble. And you really start feeling this. Okay, Bryce, thank you so very much. I'm wondering, some of you in here, it's not so much that what you've been faced with is too much to hold for a little bit. Some of you guys have some worries and some anxieties, some stress you've been holding on to for a long time, and it's about to get you. Do you know how much power you have at your disposal right here and right now just to let go? He really is trustworthy. What you're going through, you really can give it to him. One of my favorite stories is about a guy that was fishing. And he was on the side of the water and he had his line out there, one fishing pole, one line. And he was sitting there just enjoying the beauty of that moment. There was a businessman who had a terrible, stressful day. And he was just trying to unwind a little bit after this ridiculous day, and he was walking along the same place where this guy was fishing. And he saw that fisherman over there just enjoying himself, relaxing. And it just kind of peeved the businessman. After the day he'd been through, and that guy's there just relaxing, enjoying the moment. So he walks up to him and he says, "You know, you're not going to catch many fish that way. You should be working rather than just sitting there on the side of that water." And the fisherman looked at him and said, "What will my reward be for that?" And the guy said, "Well, you can get bigger nets and you can catch more fish." And the fisherman said, "What will my reward be then?" And the businessman said, "Well, you can make more money and you'll be able to buy a boat, which will result in larger catches of fish." And the man said, "Well, what will my reward be then?" Now it's starting to hack the businessman off. He said, "Well, you can buy an even bigger boat and you can hire some people to work for you." "What will my reward be then?" He said, "Don't you understand? You can build up a fleet of fishing boats all over the world and let employees catch fish for you." And the fisherman said, "What will my reward be then?" Now the businessman, he was irate. He goes, "Look, you can become so rich that you will never have to work for a living again. You can spend all the rest of your days sitting on this beach, looking at the sunset, and you won't have a care in the world." And that fisherman looked up and with a smile, he said, "And what exactly do you think it is I'm doing right now?" Do you know how much power you have at your fingertips right now just to let go of some of the stuff you've been carrying for a long time? That relationship that isn't getting you anywhere? That worry that you're going over with your finances? That job situation that is dead end in every way? Well, we went to CPC and that pastor, he told me to get out of that marriage and quit my job and sit on the side of the water. I'm not telling you that. You think you're actually going to get rid of your worry by doing nothing, becoming a ne'er-do-well? No, that's not the way we get. That's like saying, I'm gonna quit thinking impure thoughts by emptying my mind. Oh, that'll work. You don't quit thinking bad thoughts by making your mind empty. That's ridiculous. You want to make your mind rid of bad thoughts? Fill it with good thoughts. You want to find something that's going to be less stress? I think what the proverb is saying, acknowledge God in all your ways. In other words, number 3, start looking for God everywhere. Find Him in everything. If your earthly pursuits are not seeing God at work, you're missing the point. You've got the forest for the trees problem. It's a matter of us finding God everywhere. Many stories are told about the good Paul Gerhardt. Paul Gerhardt was a hymn writer back in Germany. In fact, Wesley took a bunch of his hymns and put them in English for us. Some of his hymns are actually sung even today. When Gerhardt was a kid, he was a part of a poor family, and he was a shepherd boy, cared for a small flock of sheep on the edge of a forest near his home. One day, a hunter came out of that forest completely disoriented, couldn't find his way, and he saw Gerhardt herding this small flock of sheep, and he went up to him and he said, "Listen, I need to know how to get to the next village." And Gerhardt said, "It's 6 miles, sir, but the road is only a sheep track, and you can easily miss it." And so the hunter said, "Well, I've lost my way and I'm tired. Would you leave your sheep and go show me the way so I can get home?" And Gerhardt said, "Sir, I can't do that. For these sheep would stray into the forest and they'd get lost, and some of them would be eaten by wolves." And the hunter said, "No, never mind that. Your master's not going to miss even 1 or 2 of them or even more. I'll pay you handsomely for all of those sheep that you lose." And Gerhardt said, "Sir, my master trusts me with these sheep, and I promised him I would never leave them." So the hunter said, "All right, let me take care of the sheep. You go into the village and get me some food and a guide and come back to me." And Gerhardt said, "Sir, the sheep don't know your voice, and they won't obey you, and they'll run away." And the man looked at him, the hunter looked at him, and he said, "Can you not trust me? Do I not look like an honest man?" And this young shepherd boy said, "Sir, you tried to make me false to my trust and break my word to my master to never leave the sheep. How do I know you're going to keep your word when you're asking me to break mine?" And the hunter could not stop laughing. And he said, "I can see you are an honest lad, and I'm not going to forget you. Which path must I take, and I'll find it on my own?" And Gerhardt said, "No, not until you have something to eat." And what little food he had, he gave it to this hunter. And at that moment, some guys came rushing out of the woods, and they were so relieved to find out where their guy was. They were looking for the man who was talking to Gerhardt, the shepherd boy. You know who Gerhardt was talking to? The Grand Duke of the land. His attendants had lost track of him. The Grand Duke was lost who knows where, and they were so relieved to find him. This Grand Duke was so impressed with this young shepherd boy that he ended up taking care of him, gave him a great education, completely changed his state in life. After I read that story, I thought, knowing the Master, listening for his will, following God the rest of my days with everything I've got, acknowledging him in all of my ways. Jesus told us that if we ask, it would be given to us. If we would seek, we would find. If we would knock, it would be open. It seems like the best way to acknowledge God in all of my ways is to spend the rest of my life asking and seeking and knocking and just keep up with that. And then the ancient proverb says, maybe 4 of the most reassuring words. God will guide you. He's got us covered. He'll keep us on track. He'll direct our steps. He'll make our paths straight. This guidance from God happens in faith. Faith even when we don't understand, when we don't see the whole picture, when we don't have all the facts. Faith even when we're in the middle of the fog. I got to tell you what, when I can't see very well, that just makes me nervous. Starting a new church, it just makes me nervous. You know, feeling like you led us to this place, trying to figure out what we're going to do. You know what we have right now in our financial reserves? We have enough to make it 4 to 6 months. That makes me nervous. But when we're following God and we don't have all the facts and we don't see the whole picture, I think that that's where he puts us in life again and again. He just says, follow me here and watch what happens. And he starts bringing people here and there and everywhere. Okay, we're here. Take a wild guess what command is in the Bible more than any other command. Fear not. That is a command in the Bible that is uttered, written, more than any other command. Don't be afraid. Take a wild guess how many times that command is given from Genesis 1 to Revelation chapter 22. 365 times. Do you not find that rather interesting? God is whispering to you every day of every year, I'm here. Don't be afraid. I'm leading you. Every day. It's a great Old Testament scene with a prophet named Elisha. He was a bald guy. Crazy stories about him. You'll have to read it sometime. One story is that he and his servant are in this city of Dothan. And there's a king from a surrounding country that's ready to make war on Israel. And he wants to start by taking out Israel's prophet, finding where Israel's prophet is and getting him to prophesy so that he can figure out his next strategy. So he finds out that they're in this city, and this king takes this massive army and he completely surrounds the city. Well, the next morning the servant goes up. He goes up to the city wall and he sees this army completely surrounded, and his fear just takes over. And so the Bible actually says in 2 Kings 6:15, the servant says, "Oh my Lord, what shall we do?" And calm, stress-free Elisha responds with something that the servant finds incredulous. Look what Elisha says. "Don't be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And the servant is looking at this huge military force, completely surrounded, all escaped. And he thinks Elisha has lost it. How could he be so blind? He couldn't wait for Elisha to come to the city wall and see all of what is around them. But the truth was, the servant was blind. Elisha prays and asks that the eyes of the servant would be opened. Look at this next verse. "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Elisha's servant was totally unaware of the heavenly army that is always surrounding the people of God. That's not just Old Testament. That's now. Were our eyes to be opened, we would see all of these fantastic hills in the Ozark Mountains in northwest Arkansas full of the heavenly army, chariots of fire everywhere. So how are we going to be able to know that that's true? Well, we got to let go of our fear and start looking through the eyes of faith. When we fully trust in God, let everything else go, look for God everywhere, believe that He's always guiding us, stress and worry and anxiety slowly begin to lose their grip. And we begin to live like Nathan was talking about right before we broke bread together. We begin to live in freedom. The 11th chapter of Hebrews is called the Hall of Faith. It's all these great, great people of faith that lived through the centuries. It wasn't because they made the right move, or because they never had confusion, or because they never had moments of worry and anxiety and stress. No. In fact, you read the accounts in the Old Testament, you see just the opposite. It's these people that refused to let go of their belief that God was doing something. They hung on, even through all of their mistakes, they hung on to God. Look what it says about these people. This is Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 13. Each one of these people of faith died not yet having in hand what was promised, but still believing. How did they do it? They saw it way off in the distance, waved their greeting, and accepted the fact that they were transients in this world. People who live this way make it plain that they are looking for their true home. If they were homesick for the old country, they could have gone back anytime they wanted. But they were after a far better country than that. Heaven country. You can see why God is so proud of them. He has a city waiting for them. Your heavenly Father's heart swells with pride When you keep trusting in Him even when you can't see. When you let go of everything except Him. When you look for Him in every situation in life. You guys, He's got us covered. He's got us on track. So, fear not. Stress less.